It's your Locked On Flyers podcast for Thursday, June 23rd. Your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is really stoked to get into it with our Locked On Sens friend about some trade possibilities today.
Yeah, it's fun to talk trades.
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, once again, I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. You can find Russ Cohen here on Twitter at Sportsology. Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. You can follow us on Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You'll keep up to date on all the Flyers news and our episodes. You can also email the show at lockedonflyers@gmail.com. We are going to be having another crossover show with our friend Russ Levitan of Locked On Senators. And just like we did last week with the Edmonton Oilers, we're going to be pitching some trades that we think maybe the Flyers and Sens could work out. It was a really fun conversation, so looking forward to bringing that to you. Locked On Flyers is free and available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, wherever you are listening right now. Hit that subscribe button. You'll get all of our episodes here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Before we get into our conversation with Ross, just a quick congratulations to Ty Murchison and Owen McLaughlin. They are Flyers prospects, official selections to Team USA camp for World Juniors this summer.
Yeah, that's really nice. I'm really happy for those guys. It's a great experience, even if you don't make the team.
Exactly. I think that just helps their development no matter what. Do you want to touch briefly on the NHL awards now that in our recording schedule time, they have been awarded? Any surprises for you?
No surprises. I was a little sad for Roman Josi. I just felt like, look, Cale Makar is great. This has nothing to do with Cale Makar. I just felt like with Roman Josi, if you watch some Nashville games, he was everything to them, and he just was unbelievable this year. He'd been sort of building to this, and that might be the one year he could win, So I'm a little bummed for him. I really felt like he was the best, but oh well.
Yeah, I think just because it was so close, there was only 25 points separating the two. And again, nothing against Cale Makar. I think he's a fine winner, but there was just this slight difference of a few writers who either voted Josi fourth or fifth or not at all. That was the points difference maker. And it just is shocking to me that somebody wouldn't include Josi in their ballot this year. But, people are entitled to their opinions, I guess.
They are.
All right, we are going to get into our conversation with Russ Levitan of Locked On Senators. We decided to do something a little different for this one. On the audio version of the podcast, if you are listening in your ears only, we have a slightly shorter version of the conversation that deals mostly with the current state of the Senators and those trade scenarios that we brought up. But we did have a much longer conversation that included some great information about the Senators, and we did want to give that to you. So if you're watching us over on YouTube, you get that longer version of the conversation with a little bit more there. So pick and choose whichever one you are interested in. If you head over on to YouTube, make sure you subscribe to our show.
Please.
And like the episode as well. So without further ado, here is our crossover with Russ Levitan. We are once again thrilled to welcome back to Locked On Flyers, probably my favorite Sens fan out there, although don't tell anybody else. Russ Levitan from Locked On Senators back on the show. We are intrigued by the Senators' cap space and prospects, and we'll want to get into some trade possibilities. But first off, Ross, kind of what is the state of the Ottawa Senators, and how is the general reaction to how this past season went?
Yeah, it's super interesting time here to be following the Ottawa Senators. Obviously, you never want to see anyone pass away. We wish thoughts and prayers, and we did about a week worth of episodes when the owner, Eugene Melnyk, passed away. But he was a very polarizing figure, to say the least. Controversial, maybe not as well liked in the community, and honestly, I think held the organization back in certain areas. Quick example, I mean, you would never have seen the Sens make their logo on Twitter a pride rainbow during the month of June. So you just see like all this progressive. His daughters are owning the team, and they've made it clear they want to be a lot more progressive. So you're seeing that off ice, which is a nice change. They're bringing back some alumni that were, isolated, kind of away from the team for years past. Chris Phillips, Chris Neal, Daniel Alfredson. Those are the trio of lifetime Senators, and they were all ostracized. They all were away from the team, living in Ottawa. It makes absolutely no sense. So it's great to see Daniel Alfredson's kind of out as a member of the alumni. He's back in the community. He's doing things. Everyone thinks the next step might be back in the front office, which would be super welcome, because one of the most interesting things you asked for the state of the Senators, so far this offseason, they've lost 2 members of their front office, and they already had the thinnest front office in the National Hockey League. Pierre Maguire was fired, and then assistant GM Peter McTavish left to go back to agency life. He actually replaced the job Kent Hughes had at that agency, so he went back to that, and you can't blame him for it. But right now, Pierre Dorion has so much on his plate from signing.
Pierre is on his own island. He is, isn't
he? Like, he really is, and I feel for him. I got to meet him at Winnipeg Ice game just a couple of months ago when they were in the playoff run, and he looked so stressed. Like, if I'm another GM doing business with him, I'm using that as leverage. I'm just going to pepper him with phone calls and just hope that he cracks, because he is a one-man show in hockey operations right now. He really is. So they need to get hiring, and what's funny is they're going to hire someone like they did last year with Pierre Maguire, and then everyone's going to roast them for who they hired. So it's a lose-lose situation, but he needs people to talk to. They have nobody in the front office right now. Josh Norris needs a new contract. I scored 35 goals.
Don't they have Alexa? Don't they have Alexa in Canada? You could talk to Alexa, right?
Yeah, well, Pierre brings up his iPad at every press conference. So I'm sure he's got that locked and loaded. He always talks about his girlfriend too. So I'm sure she's helping him out as well. But it seems like a time of change right now in Ottawa. And the worst thing they can do is just take one of their pro scouts and make them an assistant GM. They have to bring in bodies and voices from the outside. If they do that, the draft is important. We had Russ on for a mock draft we're doing, and I don't even know if the Sens pick at 7. That could be a conversation that we discuss. I know the Flyers are trying to rebuild on the fly here, which we can get into, but the Senators are in such a tough spot. They actually went longer, or they are going longer right now without a playoff appearance than they had when they were an expansion team. They made the playoffs in their 5th year as a franchise. They've now gone 5 straight years without a postseason berth. The fans understood the rebuild, and certainly when you see Carlson turn into Norris and Tim Stützle, you're like, okay, these young players, we can get behind them. But at some point, you play to win the game. A little Herm Edwards there for you. You play to win, and right now they haven't won in so long. It's sad, it's disappointing, but you see these little glimpses, like the end of this season. I know they played Philly in game 82. Brady got his 30th goal of the year, which was a nice milestone. You know, you feel good about milestones, but winning's even better. And they went 9-2-1 at the end of the COVID year too. And you're like, okay, we're turning a corner. And then they start the year with 4 wins in 20 games, just like they did the year before. So they need a strong start, but this offseason, they need to upgrade. And I think, Rachel, last time I was on, I teased you about Claude Giroux coming home. And here I am again, and he's still not home. Although he is currently in the Ottawa area, he still has not signed. Although I'm holding
Well, he's in the Ottawa area every summer. So you have to put that little asterisk next to it.
We had just a quick aside. It's the funniest story, because I got an anonymous DM on Saturday. This guy was flying to Ottawa, and Philip Forsberg was on his flight. And you're like, okay, Penning UFA, like, what? Turns out he was just in town for Ryan Spooner's wedding, but hilarious nonetheless that I get these DMs. Like, it's rumor mill season, and then he posted beautiful downtown Ottawa. So it's hilarious, because NHLers and Russ, I'm sure, doing the circuit, you understand, you don't see downtown Ottawa when you make the trip. You go right from the airport out to the Brook Street in Canada, and you just see farm fields the whole way. So
right. Although I've been to downtown Ottawa and had a beaver tail, I just want to let you know.
There you go. On the canal, or you went down to the market? Oh, yeah, he'd be a market guy for sure.
A market guy, not on the canal. I didn't get to the canal.
Oh, yeah. All right. But, yeah, it's a beautiful town. It just sucks that they play so far away. So that, as you mentioned, like, what's the deal with Ottawa right now? In about a week, they're meeting about this beautiful plot of land right next to Parliament Hill. Everything is so bureaucratic in Ottawa, the capital of Canada, that it takes like 25 layers to get anything done. But there is this prime real estate, probably the most prime real estate in Canada, right at the foot of Parliament Hill, that is just begging to be developed with a hockey rink. So we're holding out hope in the long-term future for that. But as it comes to this summer, if Pierre Dorion doesn't do enough to make this team at least competitive out of the gate, they might have nobody in the front office because he should be on the hot seat then too. He's now going into his 6th season as GM.
Yeah, I think both GMs are going to be a little bit in the hot seat this upcoming season.
Yes, I would agree with that.
So let's say Chuck Fletcher wanted to lose some salary and trade an upgrade player for Ottawa, and because I think Ottawa will take on some salary, because if they don't get that plot of land, I think they're going to want to make sure the team's good to be sold at some point, right? Because it's going to get sold anyhow. And I wonder if Ottawa would be interested in like Travis Konecny and one of the 23rd seconds for that 7th pick. I wonder if that's something Dorian would do, and that would help Chuck Fletcher clear some cap space, and then he could do more wheeling and dealing at the draft too.
That's interesting. Now, you mentioned that happening at the draft. You would probably know better than me. When does signing bonuses get paid out this year? It's on July 13th, right? It's when free agency starts?
Yep. Yes.
So this is where it gets interesting, because we've seen it before. Ottawa's made trades, most famously or infamously in Canada, or in Ottawa, Mika Zibanejad and a 2nd-round pick for Brassard. Well, that was so that the Rangers would pay his $2 million bonus. Now, I don't know if the Sens are in that much financial stress right now, but I see Konechny's got a $2 million bonus due on July 13th.
I don't think they would do it this time. And Ranger fans are happy that Ottawa did it last time.
No doubt. Hey, we follow our Sens abroad through the playoffs. In 2020, when they had the expanded playoffs, we could make an entire roster with like a deep team of guys who used to play here but had their success elsewhere. But Konechny's obviously an interesting one. I don't know how many of your listeners would know that he used to be the captain of the Ottawa 67s when he was a junior player. So he's obviously a guy familiar with the area. He plays that tenacious style that the Senators are always enamored with. And he's clearly got a bit of offense. Now, did he fall off production-wise because the team did? And more so last year? I mean, he got back to 50 points this year. But what kind of player do you think Senators fans would expect? Like, to me, just on name recognition alone, I don't know if you're looking at 7th overall. It's a pretty good player. Russ was telling us about when we had him on that, like, you're going to get a decent middle 6 player out of 7th overall in all likelihood. So I don't know if a Philly 2nd is probably going to be enough, but I'm curious if there is a deal to be had around Travis Konecny, because as I mentioned, he just screams like Ottawa Senators type player.
I think so too. I think he's, I hate using this word because it gets overused sometimes in hockey circles, but he's very pesky. Like he's got a mouth on him and he likes to use it and get into it with other players. He's scrappy, but not in a harmful way. Like, he doesn't take too many unnecessary penalties, I would say, but he does get into it for sure. And I like that about him. And he's a guy that prides himself on being able to take, I think, as many shots as he wants. And he's not afraid to take shots. And, you know, I think where he's run into a little bit of problems recently is just his accuracy hasn't been 100% there. Mm-hmm. And I do think that that's redeemable, though. Absolutely. I think that with the whole Flyers team in kind of a rut, he was part of that to some degree. But I do think that if he sort of went, quote unquote, home to Ottawa, change of scenery, he could like kick back into gear. Absolutely. All right, we'll be back with Ross a little bit more. We're going to get into some trade scenarios, especially with maybe one Travis Konecny. So stay tuned for that. But first, we are going to hear about our friends at Built Bar.
From the people who invented healthy and tasty comes the latest gift to your taste buds. You probably tried the amazing coconut brownie chunk Built Bar, but guess what? Your friends at Built have given Coconut Brownie Chunk the Puffs treatment. That's right. Coconut Brownie Chunk Built Bar flavor you love in a deliciously chewy marshmallow covered in 100% real chocolate. It's like a fluffy cloud of coconut brownie goodness. But they don't just taste amazing. They're good for you. Low calorie, low sugar, high protein, and all delicious. Coconut Brownie Chunk Puffs are only here for a limited time. Go to Built.com now to make sure you don't miss out. All Built Bars are made with collagen protein. which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good and is good for you. The best part about Built Puffs is, of course, they taste incredible, but you can enjoy them guilt-free. They are the perfect treat, perfect when you've got a craving, you need to satisfy your sweet tooth, or if you need a quick, healthy snack. They're an excellent source of protein. Delicious coconut-rich sweet brownie, creamy marshmallows. Stop fantasizing. Get to Built.com and order a box of chocolate brownie chunk Built Puffs right now. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15, and get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com.
All right, now here's more with Ross from Locked On Senators, where we get into those trade proposals.
Yeah, so I like that. And here's a name I'll throw back at you guys, because like the 7th overall pick in this type of discussion, I don't know if it has much unless there's,
Well, I have another option for you, but continue your thought.
Okay, nice. I'm curious about this, but something that's been thrown out, and it was just discussed last weekend on Hockey Night in Canada, was Connor Brown and his decision upcoming. And I know that the Flyers kind of want to reload rather than rebuild, and that would give a little more financial flexibility. He's in the final year of a contract, which again, you're kind of banking that he either likes it enough to re-sign, you move him at the deadline if things aren't going well, or you keep him through and see what happens in free agency. But Connor Brown's a fantastic hockey player. I hope Ottawa can find a way to keep him. But to me, he just screams like the kind of guy where if he's on the move this offseason, he can go to a team and help them go to a playoff spot right now, and at almost $2 million less than the cap hit that you're looking at for Travis Konecny. So I don't know if it would be a 1-for-1 like we saw with Atkinson for Voracek last summer, but of the same vein, you're trading an NHLer for an NHLer, and you're looking at a guy who's probably going to, I'd say similar production. The Sens might have to add a prospect in there as well, maybe a Roby Jarventi or Victor Lodin, like a kind of a B-level prospect. But I think Connor Brown could be an interesting name and a guy who I think would fit in really well with what Philly's doing.
Yeah, just to make it clear, it wasn't just for the 7th. You were getting a 2023 second.
Right.
Besides, yeah. and that's actually, it's a good draft. But if you're doing the Connor Brown thing, I do think that could work. But I think if you went Konecny and still gave one of those extra 2023 seconds for Connor Brown and Bernard Docker, how about that?
Yeah, that's interesting because there is a lot of conversation right now in Ottawa about the ETA to the NHL between Jacob Bernard Docker and Lassie Thompson kind of being side by side, and they're both right shot defensemen, both first round picks. I believe Lassie was 19th, JBD was like 24th. Now, you're hurting my heart here because I love my Nodak Sens. We got 4 of them right now in Ottawa there who went to North Dakota all together. But that being said, right shot defensemen are always at a premium, so there is value to be had there. He's just kind of that, I'm trying to compare maybe like a Travis Sanheim type where it's not like you're never looking at the point production with him, but you're looking at just kind of a steady, reliable presence. So that's interesting. I like
he's more of a defensive. He's more of a defensive defenseman where Sanheim does have a fair amount of offense. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I think my other option for that, and I'm sure it would take a lot to pry him out of your hands, but I am a huge fan of Ridly Greig.
Okay.
And so I'm thinking if you
he's such a flyer too. Now that you mentioned, didn't his dad play or coach there? Or no, he's a scout. He's a scout, isn't he, Russ?
Scout.
Yeah. He's a scout for a long time.
Yeah.
You know what? The first time we had Ridly on, Rachel, he said that his family bleeds orange. So you know what? There's definitely a conversation to be had.
There's a reason why I like him so much. But he did have a really great year this past year. And I think that if you have him plus one of the second rounders for Konecny, I think that clears the cap space that we need. It doesn't get us back an NHLer right away, but I think it does a really good job of clearing cap space. And I think Greg has a shot of making the NHL, or at the very least being a midseason call-up this next season.
I think he's pretty close to finding his way. Now, remember, he's already suspended for his first NHL game, and that's something that you're probably going to have to deal with.
I can live with that.
With Ridly Greig. He's always chipping away behind the plate, guys. And
listen, most Flyers would have been over the years anyhow if they'd been calling that, so that's fine.
That is hilarious. You know what? Like Ottawa fans, and right now and where they are in the rebuild, especially if Connor Brown won't be re-signing, I think the natural progression is to get Ridly Greig into that top 9 sooner rather than later. Now, whether he's a center or winger, that's where the trade conversation could become a little more nuanced, because you got Norris, Stützle, and Pinto down the middle. And in all likelihood, those are your three guys with Mark Kastelik right in the mix there. Your big,
Yeah, he's a winger. I think Greig's a winger. Yeah.
You think Greig figures at wing? Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at that too. So then you're kind of looking at him and Alex Formenton and say, okay, if we can add a top six guy, obviously Brady Tkachuk's got a top six wing spot locked down. And then beyond that, there's a lot of talk, Kevin Fiala, he's going to move somewhere, but that type of player to play with Tim Stützle on the second line. So yeah, if you're kind of building down the way that way, and Konecny plays more right wing than anything these days. Am I right? Or is he in the middle?
Yeah, right wing.
Right wing, yeah, exactly, and would be somewhat of a replacement then if they are looking maybe in a separate trade then to move Connor Brown. But there's intrigue, but I think the value would probably be sky high with Ridly Greig. Like, I don't know if a second pushes it over the edge. It's tough because he was a late first, but I'd say his value's probably gone up from where his draft slot was based on his play over the last 12 months. And then he was able to step in. Like, he only got to play the final game. Don't get me started on the AHL playoff structure this year. 2 games in the top seed. Their first game they played at home, they were facing elimination. They lost both their games in overtime. Both games in overtime to Rochester. But he got in for that second game after suffering an injury to finish out the WHL year. And he got all over the ice. Like, he's such a weapon. But again, you got to give to get. And Travis Konecny is only 25 years old and signed for 3 more seasons at a pretty reasonable rate. But I guess if you're the Senators right now, like 5x5 with 3 years, that's the type of contract that I just offer Connor Brown and just keep all my assets. So that's kind of where I'm a little bit as an outsider. Like, if Pierre Dorion knows that Connor Brown isn't going to sign, I think that becomes a real possibility to try to replace that type of role. But to me, Konecny and Connor Brown are pretty similar players. So as long, like, in terms of, like, you probably want one rather than two, because I think they're both elite third liners, but decent second liners. Was that what you call Konecny? Like a middle six guy who can play top six, but if you're a championship winning team, he's probably your third guy.
I mean, he does play top line pretty frequently.
But was that, I know that Philly suffered a lot of injuries, especially early on in the year, like no Hayes.
He did anyway, though.
Yeah.
I mean, if you looked at like the previous couple of years, he was on that top line quite a bit. I mean, second line too. It just depended on the game and what the blender of the lines was that time, and our various coaches we've had over the past several years. But
I would tell you one thing: Torts would have Ridly Greig as his favorite player within the first month of him being there.
Listen, I thought about this. I absolutely thought about this.
So, are you offering here Travis Konecny and a second round pick next year for Ridly Greig?
No, I'm offering Travis Konecny for Ridly Greig and your Bolts second.
Oh, no. I don't think that's a trade that the Sens would do, especially where they're at in the rebuild. No, I don't think so. I think I'm going to put out a tweet here and see what we can figure out. But I think it would be, let's see. I'm going to put it out.
That's why I picked the lower second rounder.
Yeah.
I thought it like balanced it a little bit.
2022. Who says no? Just for fun, I'm going to add a third for Philly for next year so that it's not a unanimous poll against us. Sure. Who says no, Flyers or Senators? And we'll check in on the results here after fair trade is the third one. We've had some fun mock trades here throughout the last couple of weeks, and I'm always keen to see what the consensus is. So, I mean, I tagged you there. You can give it a quick retweet, and we'll see at the end of the show what the initial impression is, because I think a lot of Sens fans are so high on Ridly Greig. I think this is probably going to go. And again, it's fans that maybe overvalue prospects, but I'm intrigued to see, because Ridly Greig would certainly be a guy, if I'm the Flyers, I'm calling about.
I think the other big topic that is at hand for Flyers fans is trying to get rid of James Van Riemsdyk's cap hit. And the Senators have cap space. So, like, what is your thought about taking on a contract like that for a guy who could honestly contribute? I mean, he scores goals. He is good net front. He doesn't work hard otherwise as much. I'll admit to that.
What's he, 32 years old now?
Yeah,
I've got the Flyers cap
I think
poured up
so.
here.
Maybe he's
33.
33.
In the
Yeah.
final year of his contract, honestly,
Mhm.
that's an interesting one. I just don't know if he fits in just in terms of like the Sens and DJ Smith just love their guys playing, fast paced, chip and chase, maybe not as much Van Riemsdyk's game. And you've already kind of got a better James Van Riemsdyk and Brady Tkachuk in terms of being a net front presence on the power play. That's where JVR does most of his damage, right? You see him try to mix in the between the legs every once in a while. Brady still hasn't successfully done it, but he tries
Well,
it like
maybe
his
he could
brother.
teach Brady how to do it.
Exactly. I still have nightmares from JVR from his Leafs days in the regular season when he was a 30 goal scorer every other year. But he's a guy who, in terms of salary, I could see the Sens eating that $7 million for sure. Obviously, it would come as a part of a package, right?
Yeah, I think that if you talk to Flyers fans, I think we're kind of done with including additional picks in trades to get rid of assets like we did with Shane Gostisbehere last season, that we had to like throw in some extra picks as incentive for the Coyotes to take on that contract, and the Flyers got nothing in return, and it was like, paying somebody to take out what you are now seeing as quote unquote trash. But I would never say that actually about Shane Gostisbehere. I think he's wonderful, and I'm glad he had a good year in Arizona. But
well,
I
that's
think
the type of trade proposal that Sens fans are putting together to get Zaitsev on the one-way ticket to the desert as well.
Here's what I'm considering, because if you look at the buyout possibility for his contract, the Flyers would have to eat $4.3 million on the cap for the first year and 1.3 on the second year. And that's just like too much in year one for the Flyers. But I think if you like sort of average it out a little bit and knock it down a little peg, and if the Flyers are willing to retain $2 million of salary, is that something that you think the Senators would do?
Yeah, well, I think more importantly than the cap hit is the salary, and JVR is that type of player. He's only making $4 million in real money, $7 million against the cap. So for me, like that's actually a huge bonus in terms of what the Senators look for, and they're not going to be a cap team this year. Like maybe, and I mean, cross your fingers, in 2 years when you have to have Stützle on his next contract, maybe then you up the ante. Jake Sanderson will need next contract because he burned that first year this year. So. He'll be 1 year further then. But even still, like they're kind of inching closer. Like this year, it's Josh Norris who needs to be locked up. Last year it was Brady Tkachuk and Drake Batherson. So, and the year before, Thomas Chabot. So, like, slowly but surely, all these top guys who are their core are making more and more money. But they're not at the point this season where they're going to be a cap team. So, if you're only making $4 million, I bet you, and Pierre Dorion has his preferences on cap friendly. He doesn't have cap hit. He has salary as the number one thing that they're looking at. So you know what? JVR is an interesting piece and one that I hadn't thought of. I just don't know if does he fit still in a top six passenger type role, or is he a guy that you have to play down on your third or fourth line?
You got to play him down.
Third line.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But third line plus power play time.
Right. Yeah, and the Sens' second power play unit was atrocious this year. It was they had Adam Gaudette on their power play unit. So I mean,
listen, I'm not going to rip Adam Gaudette, but I get it. All right,
exactly.
So here's another one. Here's a haymaker.
Yeah.
So my haymaker for you is Ivan Provorov and one of the 2023 seconds for Thomas Chabot if you need the salary relief.
No, we're good. We're good. I mean, Thomas.
No, but I've heard some rumblings like maybe they are going to get rid of his salary at some point and trade him. I've heard little rumblings.
Oh, we'll keep those as rumblings right now because I haven't heard any of that. And to me, he's the kind of guy that you base everything around. And, maybe this conversation changes in 2 years when he's making $10 million in real money.
Well, but that's the thing. I don't know if they want him to make 10 and they have Jake Sanderson coming and Sanderson to run the power play. So that's why I think I'm hearing little rumblings.
Yeah, I mean, this upcoming season, he's making $4 million in real money. So I certainly, at that value, this wouldn't be a conversation that happens this upcoming season, even at $8 million the year after. But yeah, those final 4 years when he's making $38 million in the final 4 years of that contract, that could be a conversation. Although you're hoping, if you're the Ottawa Senators, that you're legitimately competing for a Stanley Cup. And at that point, then, I mean, the Senators know just as well as anyone when they lost in the Cup final, it was one shift you had Niedermayer, the next shift you had Pronger, over and over and over again. So you're hoping one day that Chabot and Sanderson can each be on different pairs, both as your left shot guys, have a legitimate top four on the right side, and you hope to go from there. But that's a haymaker, but I don't think it's even close in value, even to that point.
Okay, but are you really going to be competing with Matt Murray and/or Philip Gustafsson, or Murray's even gone? Like, are you really?
Oh, we're just throwing Anton Forsberg under the bus like that?
Yes,
that was unbelievable.
Oh no, I have. Yeah, okay. If you're gonna, I will tell you this: if you are going to base all your hope, faith, and dreams on Anton Forsberg, get out of this business. He will break your heart.
I don't know, man. He was impressive last year, and for a guy making 2.7, certainly this year they've got some decisions to make. And will Murray's 6.25 end up on LTIR? I'd say probably more likely than not. At some point he is. And then you open up and maybe you go out and get. We have a thing on Locked On Senators where if you come on the show, we're going to protect you forever. That's why we don't stand for any Tyler Boucher slander. We don't stand for any of that.
No, of course not.
And one of our boys is Matt Sogard. He's probably one of the guys we're closest with. So
I like Sogard. Listen,
for the Great Dane.
I like Sogard. He's been a little slow in developing, but I wouldn't give up on him. And now Boucher,
he's only 21.
Right, I've emailed back and forth with Boucher. I'm good with him. I know why people are upset about where he was slotted in, but he could play hockey.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, I think were some interesting trade options there. Do we have a final word on the Konecny deal?
You made me so sad with that Thomas Chabot offer and rumblings. Come on,
it's coming.
Stone, Duchesne, Carlson. Like, give me one guy to enjoy for at least a decade.
It's coming though. Chabot, unless you get bigger ownership to spend more money, which you might. I don't know if Chabot's there in 2 years, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he'll definitely be here this year with a $4 million salary. That is a no-brainer. Especially when I look at Provorov and he's got signing bonuses every summer, and to me that just excludes him from the conversation right away.
It is a part of it.
I don't think the Senators have a single player other than Nikita Zaitsev right now who has any signing bonus money in their contract. Signing bonus.
That's crazy, and they always had backloaded deals because they usually
1.25 to Travis Hamonic this offseason as well. Those are the only signing bonuses right now. So that's just such a non-starter for the Sens for whatever reason. And a part of it, I could tell you why, was Danny Heatley when he requested a trade, and then they had a trade in place to send him to Edmonton, and he said no, waited it out, got a $4 million bonus, and then ultimately accepted a trade after that. So I think the organization has kind of made it policy not to give out bonuses. And in turn, they have to do these backloaded contracts. And then once they get to the higher pay, it all comes downhill. So, yeah, we're hoping that someone with big pockets comes in, at least takes over a majority ownership of the team. You just don't see single people own hockey teams anymore. It's always like the Fenway Group just bought the Boston.
Hey, you're talking to people whose team is owned by Comcast.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. And this is just one dude, a pharmaceutical guy who got kicked off every board he was ever on, got sued by everyone, casinos, airplanes. Like, he just didn't have the money to run an organization. So we're hoping, and there's a couple, like the people who own Sobeys is a big grocery store up here. Farm Boy in particular is the Ottawa area, kind of smaller part of it. They ultimately got bought up, but there's rumors, and we're waiting ever so hopefully. But I think as the Sens get into their 30th season right now, the real conversation is how can we bring Daniel Alfredsson back? How can we bring in all these alumni and make everyone feel a part of the same group? Because it was such an ostracized, like uncomfortable environment for those who I've talked to who work there and no longer do. There was one singular reason why nobody wanted to work there, play there, and it all came down to one person, and that person is no longer a part of the organization.
So you're going to bring Alexander Daig back?
Bring him in. He can be the producer. Isn't he directing movies now? He can He can work in content. Let's go. Bring him in. You never forget, or what is the saying that he said after the draft? You never remember who goes number 2, and then Chris Pronger went number 2. Sick.
Yep.
Nice call, Dagger. Unreal. What a guy. Man, his numbers, like, he gets called the biggest bust ever, and like I get it, but he didn't like hockey that much, is what I heard. He just kind of did it for the money, but like his numbers weren't awful the first few years. I mean, he was drafted the year I was born. So I when I started following hockey, like they had just stripped Yashin of the sea when he held out and gave it to Alfredson.
He was
That's
too
when
busy.
I started
He was too
following,
busy dating starlets. That was the problem.
Oh, yeah. Well, Ottawa's had a few of those. We had Mike Fisher when he met Carrie Underwood. We had Mike Comrie play here with Hillary Duff. Ray
Well, with
Emery
him, it was
had
with him.
Keisha Shante.
Yeah, with
So
him, it
we
was
had a
Pam
couple.
Anderson, right back in the day. So.
There you go. I actually didn't know that. Unbelievable. Learn something new every day. The Daigle. Man, but it's interesting because I think that for Ottawa to be competitive, I mean, Russ touched on it. We're a goalie-friendly show. Like, I loved what I saw from Forsberg. I know Russ hates him, but he is he's at that age where, you know, we saw Craig Anderson come to Ottawa as a 29-year-old, and he made a decade out of it. So obviously, I'm probably a little hopeful, but the real stat that sticks out, he was 7-1 when facing more than 40 shots. And the Sens decor, they're going to give up their fair share of shots. So I'm hoping that he can stand tall for 35, 40.
Never bet with Anton Forsberg, but you'll learn.
All right, we'll find out. I'm excited to find out, man, because he certainly earned the contract he got, and they didn't seem to overpay him. 2.75 is pretty reasonable.
No, that's not an overpay.
So yeah, we'll see how it happens. I mean, the one guy, you say don't trust Anton Forsberg. I'll tell you one thing for free. I don't trust Matt Murray as far as I could throw him.
No, I get that.
It's like right when he started playing well, all of a sudden he just got like a little tap from Zaitsev and he's out a month. And then a little tap and he's out a month. And I feel for the guy. I think he had like 4 concussions in the last 2 years. Like, it sucks. And like as a goalie with your neck, it's always you're on a swivel, looking in the offensive zone. Like, it's tough, man. But they bet on the wrong horse. They gave up a ransom to get him there with a second round or one? No, just a second round pick. But still, it has not worked out. Forsberg's played more games than Matt Murray since Matt Murray got to Ottawa, and Murray had a year head start. So it's tough situation in goal, and it really makes Senators fans appreciate Craig Anderson, knowing the stability he brought to that position for as long as he did, because he was kind of unbelievable year, decent year, unbelievable year, decent year. And then we're like, man, I would go for 2 straight decent years. It'd be really
but I want
fun.
to say Anderson, I think, won like maybe 13 games in a row, something like that, to make the playoffs, maybe with Florida at the time. You're not getting that out of Anton Forsberg.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, we got better than that out of Andrew Hammond, so anything can happen. That was the most fun I've ever had watching hockey. 21-2 to make the playoffs on the final day in Philadelphia. I remember that game like it was yesterday. Steel Snipe Stally. That was back like 3 generations of Sens ago, and we're only looking 7 years. Like, you look at the Flyers team, and they're kind of rebuilding on the fly, but at least there's some continuity where you have the Travis Konecnys of the world. I mean, there was a big change with Giroux and Voracek, but at least there's some familiar pieces. If you were in a coma for 3 years and you're like, oh yeah, can't wait to see the Sens game, there's like 2 guys who you'd recognize. It has really been a top to bottom, blow it up and let's see where the chips fall. And right now they're in that weird spot where the GM is going to have to be aggressive because his job probably depends on it next year. And I don't know where they go from there, but it's going to be a very fascinating offseason. I think these are probably 2 of the teams in the East, us and I was going to say the Islanders, but they don't really have a whole lot of flexibility. Looking at teams who are on the outside looking in, New Jersey, I'll say, because obviously they got a lot of prospects, picks that they can move. But between the 3 of these teams, I think it's going to be a super interesting offseason. For Ottawa, I'd say more make or break. And for Philly, I mean, maybe they realize that it is going to have to go more in the sense of a rebuild, or Torts whips them into shape. So I'm interested to see. It's going to be a lot of fun for sure. Let's, before we go, let me pull up the results.
Say.
We put up a poll, Russ, while you left for 2 seconds. Ridly Greig and Tampa's 2nd round pick this year for Travis Konecny and Philly's 3rd in next year. And we've got 250 votes so far. 50%, almost 48% say the Senators would say no to that. 30% say Philly would say no to that. And 23 are saying it's a fair trade. So it's not egregious one way or another.
No,
there's no majority.
Not terrible.
Yeah,
so
interesting.
Let's get her done. All
right,
right,
let's get her done. Hey, we'll talk on July 14th when the trade goes through, right after the signing bonus gets paid out to old Konecny.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Ross, thank you so much for joining us. This was so much fun. Always love talking scenarios with you.
Oh yeah, that was a blast. Ross, enjoy the Stanley Cup final. Rachel, it's always a pleasure. We'll do it again soon. All right.
All right. All right. Thanks once again to Russ Levitan. Always a great conversation and some fun possibilities there with Ottawa.
Definitely some fun. Yeah, there's going to be some things happening in Ottawa this year.
Yeah, hopefully the Flyers can get involved in that and utilize some of their cap space.
Yeah, that would be good.
All right, that'll do it for today's show. Tomorrow is going to be an interesting episode. It's a special Locked On NHL collaboration. All of the lottery teams from the NHL draft did our mock draft picks, and this is all of our picks strung together in order. Russ gave our pick, and we are curious what you think about it. So tune in tomorrow, and we will have that for you. If you are upset about our pick or agree with our pick, let us know. You can tweet us at Locked On Flyers, or you can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
You made us your first listen today. Now make your next listen Locked On NHL. Locked On NHL covers the playoffs like no other. You can hear all the latest news and opinions from local hosts around the league every Monday through Friday. I'm on the Friday show, so check that out. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts, and have a great day.